When I think about testing, I think about how it involves many different parts. We're talking about making sure every button, every field, every table in the system all displays the way that we want it to, that the tester can interact with it the way we expect them to. I also think about integrations. If we are integrating with data, then we want to ensure that the data displays in the system correctly. And likewise, if we are sending data to another system, we want to make sure that it reaches its destination and it displays there properly. We also talk about role-based permissions, the permission and access testing, so that as a tester, I should be able to only see the data that are within my permissions. I should only be able to access applications according to the access that I've been granted. And all of these things, they are all very important parts of testing. They're all the different topics of testing. However, I have come to know that there's a additional part of testing. Everything that I just said, I would consider that to be the functional testing, making sure that this specific field works the way I want it to. If there's any logic attached to it, then that logic needs to perform the way that we're expecting it to. But there's something else here. And what I've seen a lot of clients start talking more and more about is the concept of end-to-end testing. And end-to-end testing relates less so to the functional individual little tests that happen across the entire system and is more connected to the process flow, the bigger idea of the system and what it's meant to do. And so if a system is meant to create a case, process a case, and resolve a case, then end-to-end testing needs to go through that exact flow from the start to beginning and have all of the functional tests massaged into it. So this way, not only are we testing every field and every button that we would come across through that end-to-end scenario, and not only are we looking at the integrations that pop up in the different steps and the permissioning and the logic that could come up, but we're connecting it to the bigger picture of the process flow. We are building these systems according to a process flow that we first identify. Therefore, we should also be testing these systems to that same process flow, because that process flow is how we are going to expect the end users to interact with the system. If they are going to create a case and then escalate it, de-escalate it, open it, close it, reassign it, go in all of these different directions, then we need to test to make sure that the system can hold up to all of those actions happening for a single case. I found in a lot of instances there are unique functions that specific systems will have. And it is good to test them in isolation to make sure they work. But what about now testing it as a part of that process flow where there's already been all these tests applied to this specific case, and then it goes in a strange direction? And that direction might be strange, but it's also realistic. It could be something that would happen in the system by the end user. So we need to test for that. And that is the way that we are elevating our testing, making sure that as we are going through the process flow, we're thinking about different scenarios. And there could be multiple, where in the one scenario, we have a straightforward path of creation, process, and end. And then in another scenario, it could go in a different direction, where it might get escalated, it might get reassigned. There are plenty of different things that can happen in these systems that we would want to ensure work just as much as the individual fields in the system work. And that's where we start to think more and more about how these scenarios can be formed and how they can be documented. And so when we first go into testing, we first think about what are those functional, individual, isolated tests that we can identify, but also what are these scenarios that we're going to test, and we're going to massage these functional test scripts into. And that way we can have 3 or 4 or 5 scenarios that all do similar things, but they might go in different paths and according to what the system is realistically being built for. And then once we combine the two of those together, we get all-encompassing testing, something that is going to make sure every potential direction this case can go down has been thoroughly tested and has been put up in a way that it is exposed. All of the different directions have been exposed and have been tested and have been verified so that when the end user finally gets their hands on it, they have no problems at all.